Hello everyone and welcome to Blaugrana Everything and welcome back to the channel. And then there were two Cules left in the running to win the World Cup, and those two are of course Jules Kounde and Ousmane Dembele. Welcome back to what is going to be another World Cup roundup. We're taking a look at what transpired in the semifinals of the World Cup. Obviously there was a lot of heartbreak for, two teams in particular, those teams being Croatia and the fairy tale story of Morocco coming to an end. So what we're going to do in this video is that we're going to take a look at how the FC Barcelona players fared in this affair. Okay, I was trying to force a rhyme there. How the FC Barcelona players fared in their respective matches. And we're going to just go ahead and go straight into it because there was only one match that had FC Barcelona players involved in it. That was, of course, the semi-final between France and Morocco. That match was played, of course, on Wednesday night, and eventually, I say eventually, but the French did really take an early lead in this game, and they eventually added on to that early lead with a late goal. So 2-0 was the final score. Goals, of course, from Theo Hernandez and Rando Kolomoani, both of whom benefited from, a deflected Kylian Mbappe shot, and one, of course, found Theo Hernandez, who came up with an improvised finish, and the other, of course, found Kolomoani, who had the easiest tap in, probably the easiest goal he'll score in his career. I don't know, maybe I'm jinxing him by saying that. Hope I'm not. So, how did the FC Barcelona players fare? Don't know why I keep doing that. How did FC Barcelona's players perform? Let's go ahead and take a look. We'll start, of course, with Jules Kounde, who I think of the three that were involved on the day probably had the best match. Okay, it was his job for the most part to keep Sofiane Boufal quiet, and I think he actually did quite a good job of that. Most of what we saw from Boufal was actually when he decided to switch wings, and him and Ziyech were double teaming Theo Hernandez, when he had drifted away from the left wing where he was starting out, going inside and going all the way to the right wing. So Jules Kounde overall, I think, had, of course, quite a solid match, except for one moment. We'll talk about that moment later on. He did actually recover quite well from that one moment where, a certain player had the beating of him, okay, easily and wonderfully, but he did recover and he made a goal line clearance. Anywho, moving on from Jules Kounde, we'll talk about Ousmane Dembele, who once again had a rather industrious showing here from France. So I don't know if I mentioned this in the previous video I did talking about France's matchup against England, but Ousmane Dembele has been quite the opposite of the winger that he is at FC Barcelona for France in this World Cup. In fact, Ousmane Dembele has been really more like a second Griezmann on the field for France, because a lot of what Dembele has been doing, I have noticed, is putting in tackles, stopping counter-attacks, stopping the opposition's fullback, when they get in, and just making those recovery challenges. So he focuses quite a lot of his game and spends quite a lot of his time tracking back and chasing the opposition, winger or defender who is attacking down that flank that he is playing in. We saw that once again here for France against Morocco, and just like in the match versus England, Ousmane Dembele managed to put in 3 tackles here for France, which once again was a team high number. Tchouaméni Fofana had 4 tackles, Tchouaméni just the 1, and pretty much it was Dembele, Fofana, and Griezmann doing all the roughhousing. No, not the roughhousing, though, just putting in those tackles that were interrupting the rhythm of Morocco's attacks and counter-attacks. And of course, Dembele did himself have quite a few moments where he was able to burst forwards, but unfortunately for him, he wasn't really able to create much. Going forwards, it wasn't as impactful of a match from him as we see when he is playing for FC Barcelona. But like I said, that's because he's just getting through a lot of defensive work, unlike a Griezmann, who is just a complete animal who can put in the defensive work and still be able to create on the other end. Dembele tends to probably be a bit too tired to put in something on the other end. So yeah, it was once again a solid performance from him. It wasn't as great as Kounde's, but you know, he gave France exactly what they needed, and he allowed them to be able to, you know, basically free Mbappe of any defensive duties, because basically him and Griezmann were working overtime, you know, striking back, putting in those challenges. Anywho, finally, I will talk about the third Cule who was involved in this match, and that was, of course, our boy Eze Abde. And he came on as a substitute here pretty late on in the match. I think, you know, the Morocco coach was just like might as well just throw everything, including the kitchen sink, at this French defense, and that's exactly what he did. And Abde came on, and I thought this was probably the brightest of his showings at the World Cup. This was definitely his best performance, let's just put it that way. Off the bench, and you knew that he was brought on to just, you know, stretch that French defense and to try and get in behind them. And he actually managed to do that, and he did it probably against one of France's best 1v1 defenders, you know, against Jules Kounde. He was able to dribble past him and quite a few other French defenders who he ran away from, and he played the square pass, and would you know it, like Morocco just couldn't score from it. So he did actually create a pretty decent goal scoring opportunity for his teammates. So, you know, this was one of those games where, to be quite honest, I do not understand why Yusuf and Azili came off as early as he did, because, you know, you keep thinking if he was on the pitch and Abde cut that ball back to him, he's probably going to score. Yeah, but you know, brilliant recovery from Jules Kounde again, to recover after being beaten, to then be on the goal line to clear the strike that did actually find the target. Alright, that's basically that. And thank you for tuning in. Okay, now like, fine. There is one more person who's going to be involved in the final on Sunday night between France and Argentina, who isn't an FC Barcelona player, but is probably going to be the most Cule player on that pitch. Matter of fact, he's like probably the most Cule player actively playing right now, not named Sergio Busquets, right? Yeah, we're talking about Lionel Messi. And of course, he had a ridiculous showing, quite honestly, for a man of his years. He just showed the enthusiasm of youth as a 35-year-old dude, and just, you know, getting the better of players like Gvardio and all those guys, and he's probably like up there for player of the tournament. It's definitely between him and Griezmann and Mbappe, and it's pretty fun that we're going to see all of that just get laid out and decided on Sunday, because, you know, these are like two of the three players will be competing for the Golden Boot as well, and they'll also be competing for the Golden Ball. It's going to be quite fun. See you guys after the final then, I guess, where we're going to be, well, at least there's going to be a Cule associated player lifting this trophy, regardless of what happens, alright? One of these two dudes you're seeing on the screen right now is going to be a world champion come Sunday, and I can't wait to see who that will be. There's of course going to be that third and fourth playoff between Morocco and Croatia, and yeah, we'll talk about Abde's performance in that as well. Hopefully he can get like a full 90. He never got that. Hopefully he can get that, because, you know, maybe the Morocco coach might be like, you know what, kid, go ahead, get yourself a start. Anywho, this video has gone on long enough. Thank you for tuning in, guys. Have a great day. Please leave your thoughts in the comments, and força Barça.